Hi folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. It has been a while since I filmed anything because I took a break from filming for the holidays because I just kind of needed it. So I think the last thing I filmed was like my read with me, which like didn't even really feel like filming in the same way. But I am back and I'm here to let you know about my best books of 2025 because 2025 is almost over. So I finally sat down and compiled my list of every book I gave 5 stars in 2025, and it was much shorter than last year's. I didn't even have 10 books that I gave 5 stars this year, and I don't think it's necessarily that 2025 was like a worse reading year for me than 2024 was. I think part of it is like at the end of last year, I kind of told myself that I wanted to be a bit more strict isn't the right word, but I didn't want to be giving 5 stars willy-nilly. Not that I was, but I thought like I should be rating things a little bit harsher than I was in 2024. Just because I felt like in 2024 I was being a little bit too generous, and then it kind of made it difficult to rate books in comparison to each other, because I would give a book a 4.5 or a 5 star, and then I'd read another book and I'd think, well, I actually think this book is much better than that book, but like I didn't have that much farther to go in ratings to like represent that feeling for myself. So I decided I should be like a little harsher with my ratings in 2025 so that like my 5-star books were really like 5-star books. And as a result, I think I have a lot of 4 and 4.5s in 2025, but not too many 5-star books. So I did write out a little list of my 5-star reads, and then I also just kind of wrote some honorable mentions of other books that I think I would consider some of the best I've read in terms of like my reading experience, if not like the book itself, if that makes sense. I feel like it'll make more sense when I like get to that. I only had 5-star reads in 2025 and I was shocked. But I'm also kind of glad that it feels like a nice number. Like 5 feels like a good number. But I think like last year I had like 10 or 12 5-star reads. So like really quite the difference. So the first book that I gave 5 stars in 2025 was actually the first book I read in the year, which I feel like is always such a good feeling when like the first book you read at the beginning of a new year is a 5-star read. And that book was Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is a Brandon Sanderson book that's part of the Cosmere, but is not part of a series. It was one of his mystery books that he released that he like accidentally wrote over the pandemic or whatever, because he's Brandon Sanderson. And I got it as like a birthday gift from my sister, and I started it in the new year on my plane home from the holidays, and I absolutely love this book. I absolutely ate it up. It is a kind of like a cozy fantasy, though there are still some like high stakes in it. It just kind of has an overall tone where even though there are high stakes and it's like there's pressure and stuff, you kind of always feel like things will work out somehow in the end, even if some bad things happen. So even though like you're worried, you're not too worried, if that makes sense. I also think the storytelling voice in this book is so funny, so fun, and so entertaining. You're following Tress, obviously, in this book, and this basically kind of like turns the, quest to save your princess on its head, where instead Tress is a young girl who goes on a big quest and adventure to save her prince instead. She's kind of like the hero in the story, and the prince is like the maiden in distress. Why am I turning? Like, I did not want to turn, but I am now sideways. But yeah, so it's super fun, and the magic in this system is really interesting. It's based off of like ether, so there's like a sea that's not water, it's like this ether, and there's different seas and they each have like different aspects to them. And I hadn't finished reading Era 2 of Mistborn at the time I read this, but after reading to the end of Era 2 of Mistborn and reading The Lost Metal, I do see like the very connection of of the Cosmere to this, but you do not need to like know anything about the Cosmere to read this book. It is very much like a standalone adventure that I do recommend reading because it was like a lot of fun, really entertaining. It read really quick, and I think it's like a very good like winter cozy read, especially around the holiday times, because it's like a feel-good kind of fantasy in a way, but not in a like it's a feel-good cozy fantasy. There's not really anything happening. There's still like a lot of action, there's still a lot of tension and stakes and adventure, but you also have like this wonderful band of characters who are all like great personalities that you'll fall in love with and are all a little quirky. And yeah, it's just like a lot of fun. My next 5-star read was The Wedding People by Alison Espach. This was actually one of the books I put on my 25 books I wanted to read in 2025. So glad I did. I gave it 5 stars. This is like one that's definitely not for everybody, but it definitely was for me. In The Wedding People, we're following Phoebe, who has kind of reached like rock bottom in her life. She's had like the straw that breaks the camel's back, and so she decides that she is going to end her life, and she books this really expensive hotel room that she always wanted to go to do so. But when she arrives at the hotel, she comes to realize that there's like this huge expensive fancy wedding happening at the hotel, and she's the only person who's not a wedding guest because of some kind of like booking error. She managed to get a room even though she shouldn't have been able to because of this giant wedding booking the entire hotel. And so she ends up meeting the bride, and her plans go afoul in kind of the best way, and you get to see all of these, like, again, it's like these quirky personalities and relationships, these like tough relationships between all the family of the wedding people and Phoebe's point of view of being like an outsider. And she kind of like learns a lot about herself in it, as well as like everybody else also kind of learns a lot about themselves. It has a lot of like dark humor in it, but I found it like so funny. I found that like kind of dark humor and that tone of like levity when talking about like these serious topics really like balance the book so you're able to enjoy it all the way through instead of getting like so overwhelmed with the weight of the story. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a fantastic read, and again, I like really loved the characters. I think that's like, I've come to learn that that's like a very key thing for me, is I really need to fall in love with characters and their stories and not just like a plot to really like love a book. There's lots of books where it's like it's a really fun plot, it's a fun read, and I enjoy it a lot, but I never like find myself feeling the love, the 5-star with those kind of books. And like instead these books where I can really like feel like characters are like real people that I connect with in the book, it's like perfection. Right? So the third book I gave 5 stars in 2025 is probably not a shock at all, but I read the 10th Wayward Children book, Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Seanan McGuire. I always loved the Wayward Children books. It's just like who I am. I read everyone. I think there's only like 1 or 2 that I didn't give 5 stars in this series. It is a series of portal fantasy novellas that follows the children at Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children, and the books go back and forth between a book being a story in like present day that's following the children at Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children, or being the backstory of one of the children. And all of these children have basically disappeared through a door that appeared to them at some point that led them into another world that is perfect for them. They then somehow end up back in our world, in our dimension, and they go to Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children to kind of like cope with being back in this world and waiting hopefully for like their doors to come back so they can go back to their worlds again. I think like Seanan McGuire just like writes so beautifully about really complex topics and with complex characters even as children, because children are people and they are complex, and it's just beautifully written. This one is a story, the backstory of Nadia, who is like a character that's kind of not as at the beginning of the series. I can't remember if she's there at the beginning beginning of the series, or if she just kind of is like not talked about as much, but it was really lovely to get her story. And this was like another kind of like water world for the Wayward Children series, and I think Seanan McGuire does such like a wonderful job describing these worlds that the children go to, and like the backstories can be so fun and so intriguing and so interesting to like dive into, no pun intended. I do think like overall I like the kind of like band of adventure quest everybody together books, just because I love seeing the dynamics between all of the characters, but the backstories are also so well done and so well written. I'm really excited for the next book. Usually I think the Seanan McGuire Wayward Children's novels release in January, so hopefully in the new year it will release. I read these on Libby because I would love to own these books, but like they're novellas that cost like the same as a 600-page book, and I just can't do that. I'm not made of money. In a dream world, I would own all of the Wayward Children books so I could just like reread them all the time, because I do really love the series. Maybe one day, but for now I will continue to place holds on Libby so I can read them. So the fourth book that I gave 5 stars is to nobody's surprise, One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. Carley Fortune is probably my favorite romance author. It's not like one of my favorite authors, period. And One Golden Summer was her new release this year. I absolutely adored this book. You're following Alice as her main character, but her love interest is Charlie, who is the brother of the love interest in Every Summer After. And so you're returning to Barry's Bay, which is like this beautiful lakeside town in Ontario that was the setting for Every Summer After. Carley Fortune does such a wonderful job of creating this like atmospheric lakeside summer like experience for you. Like I have never spent a summer at a lake, but like these books make me feel like I'm spending a summer at the lake, you know? Do you know what I mean? It's that good. And so you're following Alice. She's brought her grandmother to Barry's Bay, and she meets Charlie, and they kind of grow a friendship over the summer. Alice has to learn a lot about herself and being like a people pleaser and doing things for herself for a change. And you deal a lot with like family dynamics, family relationships. You get to see cameos from Percy and Sam, the main characters of Every Summer After, and you get to learn a lot more about Charlie in the book. And I think like both Alice and Charlie make these like huge, wonderful character arcs and relationship arcs with themselves. And it's just like a really, I don't know, warm fuzzy book, but it's not because it's constantly happy warm fuzzies. Like there's a lot going on, but it's all kind of like for the good, I guess, you know, like you can see where it's going, and it's just like was such a wonderful book. I love Carley Fortune's writing. I'm so excited for her new release coming out in 2026, One Perfect Storm. I also like adore her cover. Like the style of this cover art is amazing. This is the Indigo exclusive edition, so it has like the gold foil title, which is fantastic. I do actually really want to, I think in 2026, read Every Summer After again, and then read One Golden Summer after it, because I didn't get the chance to do that before reading One Golden Summer. And they're like kind of a series because the characters are related, so I think it'd be really nice to read an Every Summer After again and have it fresh in my mind and then get into One Golden Summer. I think that would be like a really fun experience for me, potentially. And then the fifth book that I gave 5 stars, so this was my last 5-star read in 2025, which is also like kind of shocking because I read this in August. So I haven't had a 5-star read since August. But it's Greta and Valdin by Rebecca K. Reilly. This was like a book that I did not think I was going to love as much as I did, and I'm really happy I did. It was kind of like I was browsing in Indigo and I saw it and I was like, oh, I've seen that book places and I feel like it's good, and I was in the mood to read like a general fiction, kind of literary fiction style book, so I decided to pick it up, and it was like such a pleasant surprise how much I loved this book. You're following Greta and Valdin, and they're brother and sisters, and it's following them as they're both kind of entering pivotal points of their adulthood, and you're dealing with both of them kind of overcoming different difficult times and like navigating that, as well as the relationship with all of their very complicated family members. This is like another book where it has a very specific tone. It reminds me a little bit of like Frederick Bachman, where there's this certain type of like quirky description. There's a certain like sarcasm in the tone. It's really funny, even though you're talking about serious topics. There's like a lot of comedy in it as well that feels really wonderful. It's really great. It's also like LGBTQ plus. I would say it also has neurodivergent representation. I can't remember if it's like explicitly said, but I feel like it's kind of highly suggested based off of Rebecca K. Reilly's own experience. It could be very easily like read as that. I personally read it as that, which I think is also very valid, because I think a lot of adults who are neurodivergent kind of just have these experiences but never have like diagnoses. But yeah, it was like a really interesting read. I read it really quickly. I started this one on a plane up to visit my sister, and I read like half of it in one day, just on the plane, just nonstop. A highly enjoyable read. I would recommend it. So on to a few honorable mentions of books and series that I did not give 5 stars to them in 2025, but I do feel like they deserve to be mentioned as some of my favorite reads and my best books of 2025. So like first on the list, I put the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. I read all 5 of the volumes that have been released in 2025. Not all 5 were released in 2025, but all of the ones that have been released, I read in 2025. And although I didn't give any of Heartstopper 5 stars, I do think it was like some of the best reading I had in 2025. And like the reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because it's just like not an experience I can personally connect to. I'm not in high school. I'm not an LGBTQ plus youth, so I couldn't feel like I absolutely was falling in love with the story, but I did really enjoy reading it. I'm excited to see volume 6 when it releases and to read that. I haven't watched the show Heartstopper, but it was just like a very like heartwarming, feel-good story, and although I didn't give any of the books individually a 5 star, I would rate like Heartstopper, I think, as a series like a 5 star, because I think every single book is very, very good. Every volume. It's a graphic novel series. I think overall, like, it's a 5-star series. I think every book does a wonderful job. It's not written for me, so I just didn't have that connection to it the way I think some other people definitely do. And I think it's wonderful that they have that connection. I think it's wonderful that the series is so popular and has done so well. Another honorable mention is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. I read this I believe it like in the summer time. I gave it a 4.5. There was just like a little bit in the middle of the book. I remember feeling all of a sudden like, why am I reading from this character all of a sudden when for the rest of the book we have not been? And it's just like something that really threw me off in the book. And it's also something that I really dislike in books, when you are reading from 2 POVs like back and forth, and then like all of a sudden there's now like this new POV halfway to 2/3 of the way through the book. And I'm like, I feel like it's too late to establish this. I don't like it. So like that kind of like held me back from giving it a 5 star. But overall, I did really love this book. Again, it has this kind of like serious topic, but funny tone of voice kind of style. This like no real plot, just vibes. Really like it's about the characters and their development and their relationships with each other, and not like what they're doing. And when I'm in the mood for like that kind of book, I do absolutely adore and I do absolutely love it. And I think Cleopatra and Frankenstein was like very close to being a 5-star read for me. Just not quite there, but it was still like one of my favorite reads of the year. I do like still think about it sometimes now, even though it's been months later. And I would like to read Coco Mellors' other writing. I know she has like another book called Blue Sisters, I believe, that's like newer and released after Cleopatra and Frankenstein, so I definitely think I'll like look into reading that in 2026. Another like honorable mention is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I actually have it out of the dust jacket right now because I started doing a reread of this before I read Brimstone. This like was not a 5-star read for me. It was a 4-star read. I don't think it's like fantastic, amazing writing, but it was like a very like happy surprise for me in 2025. It kind of gave me very much just like, it was a fun time. Like I just was so entertained, and this was like a really chunky book, and I was reading digitally, which I very much dislike in comparison to reading physical books. I don't like hate reading digitally, but I much prefer reading a physical book. So the fact that I read like such a chunky book digitally so fast, I think is really like a testament to the level of entertainment that this book provides. I will say, I don't think this is like even the most logical of books. I don't think it makes the most sense. I think it's like, it's a romantasy book. So like, it's one that I read going into it just wanting to be entertained, and it provided me that. This is not the Greenbone Saga for me. This is not Mistborn. This, you know, like, it's not, I'm not there for like this extravagant, extremely well-built world building fantasy plot. Like, I'm here for fun times and romantasy, and it gave me that, and I was really happy with it. So I'm kind of excited now to be doing this reread because I'm like curious to know if I'm gonna have as much fun with it the second time around, or if it's going to be like, oh, I'm now disappointed. This is not what I remember the experience being. I'm going to find out. Like I said, I'm rereading it. I'm only like, I don't know, like less than 100 pages into my reread because I was trying to finish up some other books as well. I then also, like, just an honorable mention for Chestnut Springs. The only one that I read new this year was Reckless, but I think I reread all of Chestnut Springs in 2025, and then I read Reckless, so I only have Hopeless left to read. And Reckless wasn't a 5-star read, but it was like a 4 or 4.5, and I've given like a 4-star or above, I think, to every single Chestnut Springs book, and I didn't include them on my 5-star list, even though like I gave Heartless 5 stars because it was a reread, so it was on my 5-star reading list for best books for whatever year I read that first. But Chestnut Springs is another series where, like, even though I didn't give every book 5 stars, this is a 5-star series for me, you know? Like, I love Chestnut Springs. I love Elsie Silver. I'm so excited to get to Hopeless. I, like, haven't done it yet because I just haven't done it yet. I know I need to go buy the book so I can read it, basically. Is why I haven't gotten to it yet. I just like have totally fallen off of the reading radar in the winter. I've just been like so burnt out and stressed with like life and work and things that reading has kind of like dropped, and I instead was doing some more mindless activities. I did knit a sweater since the last time I talked to you guys for one of my nibblings. It's so cute. I'm like obsessed with it. So that's exciting. And I told myself I'm not allowed to start the next nibbling sweater until I finish some of the books I said I was going to read, because I do feel like I'm in a reading mood now, and I just know that if I start a new sweater, I will just like lock in and knit until there's no tomorrow. I will not be able to stop myself. I have no self-control. So I am trying to prioritize my other hobby before I dive back into the knitting. I think like maybe in the new year, I feel like a good like New Year's Day experience will be just like starting the new sweater and just like knitting all day. That seems like a really fun time to me because I'm boring like that, you know? Yeah. That's what I've been doing. The last honorable mention I would like to give is to the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I didn't grab it because like there's so many books, but I've read up into Queen of Shadows, so I still have 3 books left to read in this series. And the Throne of Glass series, like, it's definitely nowhere near 5 stars for me. I gave like a lot of it 4 stars because I do again think it's like entertaining fun, but the real reason I'm doing the honorable mention for it is because I have been reading each book in a series of reading vlogs, and I have just had so much fun making those reading vlogs and like yapping and complaining about really minuscule things in the Throne of Glass books. And so they have provided me a lot of entertainment and a lot of fun and a really great time. And so I appreciate Throne of Glass for doing that, even if I don't think Throne of Glass is a 5-star. Like, it's not one of the best books I've read, but it has been one of my favorite experiences in 2025. So I felt like I should mention it here in my best books of 2025. But that is like all I have for you today. If you happen to like the video, make sure to give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. Do let me know what some of your favorite books in 2025 were. How many 5 stars did you read? Did you have like a really good reading year, a really bad reading year? Did you have a ton of 5 stars, no 5 stars? Any and all thoughts, let me know down below. And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.